What if the very first miracle of Jesus was not just about power, but about a silent message meant personally for you? A message hidden beneath celebration, beneath joy, beneath something as ordinary as a wedding. It begins not with thunder, not with crowds, but in a quiet, almost forgettable moment. A small gathering in a place where no one expected history to shift. The story of the first miracle is often told as a simple transformation. But what if it was actually a revelation? A glimpse into who Jesus truly was, and what he came to do. Welcome to Lord's Quiet Whisper. And before we begin, ask yourself honestly, if you truly love Jesus, don't just watch this message, feel it. And if your heart connects with him, even for a moment, stay with this channel, because some messages are meant to change you, not just pass by. You find yourself standing in the middle of a wedding in Cana, as described in John 2:1-11, surrounded by laughter, music, and celebration. Yet something feels off. Something is about to go wrong, and no one sees it coming. The joy is real, the smiles are genuine, but behind the scenes, a quiet crisis begins to unfold. The wine is running out. In that culture, this was more than an inconvenience. It was shame, embarrassment, a moment that could stain a family's honor forever. And as you stand there almost unnoticed in the crowd, you see her, Mary, the mother of Jesus. There is something in her eyes, something calm, something knowing, as if she senses what no one else does. She turns to him, and in that simple, almost casual exchange, something shifts in the air. Jesus responds in a way that feels distant, almost mysterious. My hour has not yet come, John 2:4. And yet, despite those words, something deeper is happening beneath the surface. You feel it, a tension between timing and purpose, between heaven and earth. Then Mary says something that echoes beyond that moment, something directed not just to the servants, but almost to you. Do whatever he tells you, John 2:5. It sounds simple, but it carries weight. Obedience before understanding, trust before proof. And then quietly, without announcement, without spectacle, Jesus steps into action. No grand gesture, no public declaration. Just 6 stone jars filled with water. Ordinary, plain, unnoticed. But you can feel it. This is not just about solving a problem. This is about revealing identity. Because what happens next is not just transformation. It's a sign that echoes back to ancient promises. Whispers of abundance foretold in passages like Isaiah 25:6, where a future feast speaks of overflowing provision. And as the water becomes wine, rich, pure, unexpectedly better than what came before, you realize this isn't just about a wedding anymore. This is about something new replacing something old, about grace overflowing where emptiness once lived. And in that quiet miracle, without applause, without recognition from most of the room, something profound is revealed. Not to everyone, but to those who are watching closely, to those like you. Because this wasn't just the first miracle. It was the first glimpse of a deeper truth, one that challenges everything you thought you understood about power, about timing, about divine purpose. And just as you begin to grasp it, the question lingers. Why did Jesus choose this moment? And what was he really trying to show you? And just when you think you've understood it, the miracle begins to unfold in a way that feels almost unsettling. Because it wasn't just about what changed, but how it changed. No one saw the exact moment the water became wine. No flash, no visible shift. Just quiet obedience, followed by an unseen transformation. And isn't that where it starts to feel personal? Because you realize, this is how he often works. Not loudly, not when everyone is watching, but in the hidden places. In the moments where you're not even sure anything is happening at all. As you stand there watching the servants pour from jars that once held nothing but ordinary water, you begin to notice something deeper. The miracle didn't begin when the wine appeared. It began when the servants chose to obey without questioning. They filled the jars to the brim just as they were told, even though it made no logical sense. And suddenly, this isn't just their story anymore. It feels like yours, because how many times have you been asked to trust before seeing any result? And then comes the detail most people miss. The master of the feast tastes the wine and is shocked, not because it exists, but because it is better than what came before. John 2:10. Better than the original, better than expected. And in that moment, something clicks. This wasn't just provision. It was overflowing grace, not just enough to fix the problem, but more than enough to reveal a pattern. That when Jesus steps in, he doesn't restore things to how they were. He transforms them into something greater. You begin to sense a deeper layer, because those stone jars were not random. They were used for purification rituals, symbols of the old ways, the old covenant, the constant cycle of cleansing that never fully satisfied. And now, those same jars are filled with something entirely new. It's subtle, almost hidden, but it's there. A quiet declaration that something greater has arrived. Not the end of the old, but the fulfillment of it. A shift from ritual to relationship, from law to grace. And suddenly this first miracle doesn't feel small anymore. It feels like a doorway, a beginning. John 2:11 calls it the moment Jesus revealed his glory, but not to the crowds, only to his disciples, only to those who were close enough to notice. And that's when it hits you. This miracle wasn't meant for everyone to understand immediately. It was meant for those who were willing to look deeper, to see beyond the surface. Because the real question isn't just what he did, but why he did it this way. Why start in obscurity? Why reveal power in silence? Why choose a moment of quiet embarrassment instead of a grand stage? And as that question lingers in your mind, something even more mysterious begins to form. Because this miracle, as beautiful as it is, feels like a shadow of something greater, something that hasn't happened yet, something that will involve not water turning into wine, but something far more costly, far more painful. And just as that thought begins to take shape, you realize this was only the beginning. And just as you stand there, trying to understand what you've witnessed, something even more unsettling begins to rise within you, because this quiet miracle didn't just reveal who he was. It began to reveal what he would demand. Not loudly, not forcefully, but deeply, personally. Because if he can turn emptiness into overflow, if he can transform the ordinary into something divine, then the question is no longer about the miracle. It becomes about you. What would happen if he asked you to trust him like those servants did? What would happen if he stepped into your life, not to fix everything instantly, but to change everything completely? And suddenly you begin to understand something even more mysterious. Because this same Jesus, the one who worked in silence, the one who revealed himself slowly, would soon walk along dusty roads, look into the eyes of ordinary people, and without explanation, without proof, simply say, "Follow me." And somehow, fishermen left their nets, tax collectors left their wealth, people left everything they had ever known. Not because they fully understood him, but because something inside them responded before logic could catch up. Why would anyone do that? Why would someone walk away from security, identity, and comfort just to follow a man who never promised an easy path? There's something deeper here, something psychological, something emotional, something almost unexplainable. And if you felt even a small pull in this moment, if something inside you is quietly asking questions you can't ignore, Then what comes next might change the way you see everything. Because the real story is not just about his miracles. It's about why people couldn't walk away from him, even when it cost them everything. And that is where this journey truly begins.